mind. I mean, it blows my mind looking at this screen. We have absolute icons from three of like the most testosterone chock fields in the world: from bodybuilding, from boxing, from mixed martial arts. And there's those smiles, because here's what I was going to say. Tough as they may appear and tough as they are, don't judge a book by its cover. Boss, take it away, my friend.
All right. Let me introduce you to a handsome fellow there, Shawn Ray. Beautiful, bold man. Look at this guy. I was talking about him last. Oh, look at his biceps. Those aren't marshmallows. Those aren't marshmallows. I was talking about him last week at a professional lady bodybuilder friend of mine, Leni Tops in Holland. He was talking about him in 1989. She said we have to look out for him. And then in 1990, he became number 3 at Mr. Olympia. So that they knew well before that he was going to do very well. You remember the movie Over the Top, with Stallone in his baseball cap? Well, apparently with Shawn, once he puts his bandana on, it's time for Shawn to do the same thing. Always pushing the limit, says what's on his mind, because it is his opinion. And I love that about guys, because then you know where you stand. Godspeed, guys.
Thank you, boss. I appreciate that, boss. But we're going to go a little bit bigger, like 370 some odd pounds. The king of the 4-rounders, Butterbean, Big E, Eric. This guy did it all. Not only was he a mixed martial artist, he's also in the Tough Man. In 1994, I believe that's when you did your pro debut, Butterbean, and that's when I was getting second in the Mr. Olympia. We kind of came up and arrived at the same time. So you were out there doing your thing in the boxing world. You did the Tough Man. You actually won 2 super heavyweight championships, I should say, the WWA, the WAA, and the IBA super heavyweight titles. And I think your last fight, I believe, was in 2002. Am I right with that one?
Real close, yeah, about that.
Yeah, and you were making some big headway in the mid to late 90s into 2000s, and we're going to find out a little bit more about what you're doing today. But it's an honor to be here with you, and of course, boss, I got some love for the people over in Holland. What do you call it? Dutch? That's what you speak? Dutch?
Yes, Netherlands. It's really weird. You speak Dutch, but in Holland we speak Netherlandish.
Netherlandish, like yes. I got a good friend, Barry DeMay, and Erica Mess, and Rolly Winkler comes from over there. So
yeah.
A lot of bodybuilders coming out of that area, and nice. I had a good time over there.
Very good. Rick's a good friend of mine, all y'all. I tell you, I met him probably, been a good 20, 25 years ago. Rick is one of the toughest little guys I've known. I mean, he's struggled from cancer to a little bit of everything. I mean, it's like, if life's trying to kill somebody, it's been trying to kill Rick from day he was born. But he always pulls through, and I always cheer for him, and I'm glad he does. And I'm glad he's still here with us now. But yeah, I mean, it's like one struggle after another. If anybody's ever had a bad luck with life picking on him, it's Rick, because man, he's had almost everything that could go wrong with a body. But man, look at him now. He's kicking strong, and he's still tough. And I'm glad to call him my friend.
Oh, Bean, thank you, man. Yeah, I'm kind of like, I got something in my eye. I don't know what it is. Man, I really appreciate that. And I, in turn,
that's so true, Rick. I mean,
those mints, they're very strong.
It's giving you the hard bumps and cruises. You always come out with a smile on your face and good positive vibes. And that's what's great about you.
Thank you, man. And getting better by the day too. Thanks for saying that. And I love this, man. I get to introduce a good friend of mine in turn also. So, I've been around the pro wrestling and the mixed martial arts worlds for decades. And I ask the question. I'm sorry, we're getting a lot of questions. I want to mention before I go on, everybody out there, thank you. We screwed up last week. I screwed up. My fault. We did not take your questions. Throughout tonight's show, we're going to come back to you guys who are throwing these amazing questions up and address you. So sorry, and it's coming. I promise. People have asked me for decades, who is the toughest person in mixed martial arts or in the world? And I'm not saying that because he's on the show with him, because he's my friend. It's Bas Rutten. I've always believed that. Not just in a fight, but how he handles life. This guy, too, has been to hell and back. There's a line in a song. I think it's a Cher song of all things. I'm showing my age. But it's talking about walking through hell with a smile. And this guy, Bas Rutten, embodies that line better than anybody that I know. And then I've seen him in the past few years not only come out of it, but just become 24/7 this happy-go-lucky, yet always thoughtful guy that I know my friend and in my opinion, the world's toughest man to beat, Bas Rutten.
Oh, Rick, thank you and very handsome and very beautiful. Yes, I know. I'm the package, the complete package, as the ladies would call it. I really appreciate it. Man, we go back a long time. I think I met you already all the way back in 2000 or in 1998, I think, already over in Orange County. So that was like within a year when I arrived here in America. So, yeah, it's been a long time, my friend. But, hey, listen, enough about this handsome man right here. What is been going on with everybody here? What have been up to? Well, let's say Butterbean, you start.
Well, I just got back from a big appearance in Florida where I got to meet some great voice actors, Tony the Tiger and Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh,
I know that. Crazy, but I had a great time this weekend.
Nice.
I just flew in yesterday from Green Bay. I went to the Monday Night Football game with the Packers and the Detroit Lions. My mentor who got me started in bodybuilding when I was 17 years old, John Brown, 2-time Mr. Universe, 3-time Mr. World, both of his sons were playing at wide receiver. One, as a rookie on the Detroit Lions, number 14, Amon-Ra St. Brown from the University of Southern California. And his oldest son, Equinemius, who was my ring bearer 20 years ago at my wedding, playing in his 4th year as a wide receiver for the Packers. That's Equinemius. But I got to Green Bay by way of Hawaii. I ran out there, planted some seeds for my show coming up in November, came back to California for a night, flew out for the Monday Night Football game, went to sleep, and I woke up, and here we are. So it was a busy weekend for me.
Wow. You, Rick?
Oh, man, I am recovering from a big emotional letdown. Shawn Ray was in Hawaii. He didn't come see me. And I'm still trying to get over this. But that's all right. That's all right, man. I know we missed islands. We'll get it next time, my friend.
Yeah.
You know, I know you guys were jet setting all over the world. All you guys traveled this past weekend. And I remember my life being like that. What I did, here's what I do now. I sit here with my dogs, and Friday night comes around, Saturday night, I sit on my sofa, and I light all my candles. I get a hot sake or a glass of wine, and I watch movies. And I could not be happier, man. I know it sounds boring. That's my life these days. During the day, I work for Cameo. This week, I talked to like Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch. And then Butterbean put me with Anthony Ruiz Jr., the world champion. Bas put me with Dan Henderson, MMA legend. Just pouring them onto the platform, having fun, connecting with people, and just being sane and stable, which I know sounds boring, but I'll take it.
Nice.
How about you, Bas?
I went to a wedding. Actually, an engagement, a surprise engagement from my buddy Alex. And I don't know how he kept it under the, so his future wife, thankfully, she said yes, actually. How he kept that for 2 or 3 months. He was doing this thing. Over 200 people. Nobody said a word. It was really amazing. He arranged something for me. So I don't have a lot of boxing gloves, side boxing gloves. But this is the latest from Marty Chukabowski, actually the boxer, a really good boxer. He got me this one. This is Pac-Man and Errol Spence Jr. on one glove. And then I have on this one Roberto Duran and Triple G. Whoa! on one glove. So I was very stoked with that. So yeah, it's been a fun trip. Happy to be home. And
I'm
up
show you
to
something.
this week. Yeah.
Paul Sykes, our friend Paul Sykes, he's asking, how do you rate Shamrock? And I don't know if he means Ken or Frank, but I'm going to say Frank. No, I'm going to say Ken by the question. How do you rate Shamrock when you fought him? He was in incredible shape and at his prime. And let's keep in mind that 3 weeks from now, Ken Shamrock is guesting live with us right here on Talking Tough. Bas?
Let's go. I want to show Bas this. This Bas,
Nice.
Muhammad Ali.
Oh, darn you, man. I don't have that. Gee, I wish that I would have met him. Gee, so bad. But anyway, Ken Shamrock. So Ken Shamrock, well, at the time when I fought him, I didn't have my submission skills yet. But he was the catalyst that made me, because I'm a very sore loser, just say, okay, I either learn this game or I'm going to quit this game. It's one of the two. So, but because I didn't like the ground, somehow I didn't like it. So I started focusing. Maybe I haven't said it already on this podcast. I don't know. But I kept going, and suddenly I fell in love with it. I became obsessed with it. I mean, I would wake up in the middle of the night, wake my wife up, and put her in a submission because I would dream a certain submission. It would go crazy. And man, so everything. Once you love it, you do it a lot, and once you do it a lot, you automatically become good. I won after my last fight. I lost by submission. I won my next 8 by way of submission, and I actually never lost the fight again. So I always wanted to fight Ken one more time, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. I was trying it to do when he came to Pride Fighting Championships, but he had different plans. He said so, but. Yes, I think what he's doing right now to keep fighting because he loves it. I said, why do you do it? You're tarnishing your career. And he says, I just love the whole feeling, everything about it. And hey, who am I to judge on that, But it's just for me to see his record now, while he was such an incredible animal in the beginning, that kind of hurts me a little bit. But like I said, he's doing what he loves to do. So it's all what he likes to do, and good power to him.
He is doing what Ken, and I'll say it here, and I'll admit it. I'll admit I said it when he comes on. Ken's a madman. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. And he's going to be here with us November the 3rd. So everybody out there, Ken Shamrock here on Talking Tough, November the 3rd. Stay tuned. That's going to be a good one, man.
Yes.
We'll actually be with Ken, I think, next weekend at a show. So I'll see what he thinks about you behind the scenes, boss, before we talk.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy. Always liked. Yeah, we always could. We went along really well. Also in Japan. So
let's torque it up, Bean. Let's get some heat going here, Bean. We need it. Boss, I hope you don't mind that I share this, but Boss and I talked yesterday. I was on a call with JBL. Now, for people who are not familiar with JBL, he was a WWE heavyweight champion, played the big Texan like JR from Dallas gimmick. And there was a little bit of public heat between JBL and Bas Rutten. And it's not heat that JBL wanted, mind you. Behind the scenes, he is considered the toughest guy in WWE. Bean, you know him from your Brawl for All days.
Yeah, I kind of washed all them guys up pretty quick, though.
I'm sure you did. And there's a question for you on Brawl for All. We'll come back to that in a minute. But we're talking about now, there was an issue with Mauro Ranallo, a friend of mine, but a much better friend of Boss's, great announcer who publicly has suffered from mental health, very publicly. And I know we've all, Shawn, I'm not sure about you, sir, but I know we've all most have had our challenges. And publicly, supposedly,
come on, huh?
Bean, we're both crazy. It's okay, man. So supposedly JBL put Mauro Ranallo in a really bad place and sent him into a depression, and Boss came to his defense publicly. I spoke with JBL yesterday. He's like, Rick, that's all wrong. It's not true. I said, why don't you come on our show and talk about it? And he said, if Boss would have me, I would love to. So I'm thinking, Boss, do we bring JBL on the show?
100%, because, this is what we always should do. We always judge if we hear something from one side, and it's great to hear it from both sides. And I think this thing can be worked out. And God knows that he and Mauro, are going to be cool again, so it can only help. So, yes, please.
Great. If we could bring Mauro on too, that would be amazing, man. I would love to have Mauro on. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. But with that, and I'm pretty sure that if that's possible, if we can put two together at the same time on, maybe that will be good. Maybe we should interview JBL first and see what he has to say. And then we bring Mauro on. Because Mauro, he's not to stop. If he starts, he starts also. So
that's fine.
Yeah.
Look, I'll tell you that our two wizard producers behind the curtain here, Rachel Sartoris and John Paz, they'll make that happen for us. We'll get it all worked out. So
nice.
I had a question somebody asked here on Rick about me fighting Larry Holmes, Scott Burke. Larry was terrified. I mean, he run the whole fight, Scott. I mean, you would think you'd want to prove, because one of his later fights, you want to prove that he could dominate a 4-round fighter in a 10-round fight, but he wasn't able to. So hopefully I answered that question.
I love it.
Boss.
Yes.
Stephanie Dawn is a yoga instructor and a student of Krav Maga. She'd like to teach a class that incorporates yoga with various aspects of martial arts. What's your advice on combining those two practices?
I think it's great. I think, to being relaxed as a fighter is the most important thing there is. Aggression has no home, so to say, in fighting because it makes emotions make you make mistakes. That's it. You want to leave the emotions home. You want to use the emotions in training, because then you can go harder. But once you're fighting, you need to be completely relaxed. So I think that is a really great thing. I don't know how you can combine it with, but I guess stretching, really great stretching routines that you can use for kicking, for the shoulders, for mixed martial arts, yoga for Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I think it's a great combination. Yeah.
I like that too. Stephanie, when it happens, let us know. Maybe we'll all get together and take a class with you. That would be fun. And Bean, I still want to see you. I mean, our good friend Diamond Dallas Page, who we will have on as a guest.
He just, I mean, some reason he's supposed to send me the info, but he never does.
All right, DDP, if you're out there, Bean.
Stephanie, come teach me.
And listen, the yoga that he does, DDP yoga, I really like it. I'm doing it also, so it's not a trick. It's not a thing. It's really working, and the story behind it is amazing also.
All right, I'm gonna potentially publicly embarrass here, but I'm gonna try it. Our producer John Paz is behind the curtain. John, do me a favor, please, while we're on, text DDP and see if you can pull him up for a second, because we need to connect Bean and DDP here live, if we can find them. If not, we'll have him on as a guest.
I'm supposed to do a show with him coming up pretty soon also, Rick. So I'll get with him and I'll get all my stuff and start doing yoga. But I am going it's in the next couple months we're doing a show together.
Absolutely.
Make sure you have a camera on that yoga. I want to see this.
Sean, how about you, Sean? Are you you're an athlete. I mean, a lot of people, and don't take this the wrong way, would say just a bodybuilder. Mm-hmm. But I know that you're not that stereotype of what people would perceive. What do you do to stay in the shape that you're in at this point of your life?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised you even said that. I'm not doing anything to stay in shape. I exercise, but I'm, it's calories in, calories out. I like to eat. If you go down my Instagram feed, you'll see I should be a food channel. I like to eat food, so I go to the gym and I exercise. And I say that very deliberately. I trained for the better part of my life. And when I retired, I realized that the only way I'm going to get hurt or only way I'm going to get injured is if I continue to train. But when I give seminars, I liken it to people that go, oh, we need you to look like you used to. I mean, there's we all have a moment in time. We have a season. And when that season goes, you got to move into the next phase of life. Can you imagine you play in the NFL for 10 years? And then you retire and you see that football player who's retired, hasn't played in 5 years. You see him, running routes with his football helmet on and his cleats. And, bodybuilding was something I did and I got paid to do as a professional. When it was over, I had to bring the testosterone down and make it a marathon, not a sprint. I don't have anything to prove to anyone. I don't need to go in there and lift so much heavy weight. I don't have to look a certain way. I go to the gym to exercise to feel a certain way. And when I do that, I'm not in harm's way. I'll use the boxing analogy with Butterbean. I wouldn't want to be his sparring partner, because if he spars the same way he fights, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. Because for me, I know when I was bodybuilding, there was no practice. I was bodybuilding. If you're coming to the gym, you're going to get your ass kicked, or at least I'm going to try to. And the end game is that you fight back, so I get my ass kicked, right? So the harder I train, the harder my training partner trains. Now, in retirement, I don't want to go in the gym like that. Because if I go in the gym like that, I just have these fears of tearing a hamstring, tearing a bicep, injuring a shoulder, maybe a hip or a knee. And these are things that are going to carry me into my old age. I don't want to start breaking down as I get further and further along in age. So I dumb it down. I exercise. I move stuff around. But I'm not looking at how much weight I'm pushing. And I'm not going there to look a certain way. I'm going in there to feel a certain way.
Awesome. Sean, thank you, man. I was curious, and I meant to ask you offline, but I appreciate you letting us all know. That's food for thought, and I'm going to hit you up on that later, if you don't mind. So I want
can I ask a question, Sean? Because I mean, how get it out? Because, I mean, the way you guys are look like, we're talking about professional bodybuilding. It's a complete different story than when you see other guys. So there needs to be the DNA thing. There needs to be that. Is that something you discovered early on that you say, oh man, I'm growing much harder than a regular person would do? How did you get pulled into that?
I think you don't really look sideways, right? You look at something that impresses you, and there's a feeling that comes over you. I imagine I wrestled too my sophomore year, and I thought it was too hard. Like I wasn't feeling it. That was hard. Wrestling was hard. Running around with a football to me was easy, but it's hard for a guy that's a swimmer, right? So when I started lifting weights, I found something that I could control. I can control going up 5 pounds, 10 pounds. I can control looking and feeling a certain way by training harder. I couldn't look at someone. It doesn't rub off. I got motivated by people that were further developed than I was, and guys that were in places I wanted to be when I saw the bodybuilders with the cute girls, or the bodybuilders on the covers of the magazines, or the photographers, or even just the adulation. When a bodybuilder walked into a room, you knew it was a bodybuilder. All the heads would turn. You can't see that when you have a wrestler walk in the room. You might see it with a basketball player, but not, you're talking the centers. You're not talking about the guards and the shooting guards. But a guy 7 feet tall walks in a room, everybody's going to notice that. Well, in my universe, a bodybuilder walked into the room. You looked, and I kind of was attracted by that. And the more acknowledgement I got, the harder I trained, and I fed the machine. You start learning what food to eat. You start learning how far you can push your body, and then you get challenged by guys that are bigger and better than yourself. And then you wake up, and there you are. I mean, it was a love story for me. I fell in love with it as soon as I got on stage.
From Shawn Ray, one of the top bodybuilders of all time. That's amazing, man. Thank you. Rachel is beating me up off screen. It's time for us to go to the next segment because we are being organized now. We're trying. We're doing a pretty good job for 4 bald guys, I think. I want to explain to everybody out there what Talking Tough is all about. It's a show where we essentially do 2 things. We want to tell what we call war stories. I mean, when you see Butterbean, when you see Shawn Ray, when you see Bas Rutten, you expect to hear stories about what happened, in the ring, in the cage, on the stage, and behind the scenes. We call those war stories, and you will hear all of that. And then where does the name Talking Tough come from? I mentioned up front, you don't judge a book by its cover. And I know you've already I can see from the comments, these are very evolved guys here. My friends Shawn and Bean and Bas, they've been through it. They've come out the other side. They're very evolved. Talking Tough is talking about being at the bottom, the very bottom of your pit of despair, what it was like, what they did to get out of it. Are they out of it now? Are they still working their way out of it? And what advice, if any, we can impart to help other people out there who might be experiencing the same thing. So we are going to go to that Talking Tough segment in just a moment. And Rachel, don't get mad at me. I have to ask one more question. It has nothing to do with this. Butterbean, Nigel keeps saying, what happened backstage after you beat up Bart Gunn? How'd the wrestlers treat you backstage at WrestleMania?
It was like, most of the guys honestly thought I was going to lose. Stone Cold, I remember him mostly. He come in my dressing room probably 10 times, jumping up, down, he'd look at me and go, "You're a badass!" And he'd run out of the room. 10 minutes later, he'd come back. He done that maybe 10 times, which, man, it was a great feeling. I mean, I didn't ever want to become a pro wrestler because for me, the money wasn't there.
Yeah.
Unless you hit it big, big, big. And that there was too many big, big, big names already. So I wanted to keep fighting because I was making really good money doing it. But to get the respect out of some of the big guys in the field, it really felt really good.
That's cool. I could totally picture Stone Cold doing that with you. And we're probably going to have Steve on as a guest before long. But one other segment on Talking Tough is we are going to have guests starting next week. And we don't know who next week's guest is yet, but the following week, we have a fellow bald is beautiful buddy when Kurt Angle is going to join us on 2 weeks from today. So everyone stay tuned for that. Kurt Angle 2 weeks from today. That will be awesome. So Talking Tough time, man. Falling to the bottom, fighting your way back out of the pit. And if you don't mind, Shawn, I would love to put you on the spot this week. And please, wisdom, if you don't mind.
Well, if we take it back a bit, I believe it was the 1988 Olympic Games when we saw Ben Johnson run a 9.86 World Championship 100-meter run. And I think it was Seoul, Korea, I think it was, when he failed the drug test after winning that gold medal and was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. It said banned. And he pretty much wore the scarlet letter for failing a drug test. And Carl Lewis was kind of like the darling afterwards by default, even though he didn't beat Ben Johnson. But later we come to find out that Carl Lewis tested dirty 5 or 6 different times. The whole steroid movement began. It got a groundswell. The WWE started testing for it with Vince McMahon. We started having the baseball players and the football players were getting all huge. And I think there was something going on with some government regulations. And they wanted to stamp out the steroid use. Well, lo and behold, it came into the bodybuilding industry. And in 1990, the very first ever drug-tested bodybuilding show would take place at the Arnold Classic, which actually happens this Saturday night in Columbus, Ohio. This would have been 31 years ago in 1990, that I went into that drug-tested competition after winning the Pro Ironman here in Redondo Beach 2 weeks prior. That would qualify me for the 1990 Mr. Olympia. 2 weeks later, I'd go to the Arnold Classic in Columbus, Ohio, and win with perfect scores and walk off with the biggest purse of $60,000 at the time presented to me by Arnold Schwarzenegger himself. Then I'd go on tour for 2 weeks over to Toronto, Canada. While I was in Toronto, Canada, I received a phone call that I failed the steroid test, tested positive. And that being said, they held on to all the prize money until the test results came in, so I didn't have the $60,000. But what I did have was the Arnold Classic trophy, second one of its kind. It started in 1989. Rich Gaspari won the first one, walked off with $55,000, and there I was, 24 years old, the new darling of bodybuilding, planning on buying a house and had big dreams and big goals at 24 years old. And I was told I wasn't going to get the check, but I would have to return the trophy, which meant I would have to go to my mom's house, take it from her mantle off the fireplace, drive it down to Gold's Gym, and leave it in Gold's Gym, Venice Beach, where they would then deliver it to Mike Ashley, who was called The Natural in Arizona. And Mike Ashley had portrayed himself as a lifelong natural bodybuilder, so stood to reason that when he got second place to me, by my default, that he would be elevated to the champion. So while I'm on tour, I don't know really what's going to happen. I don't know, is this the end for me? I failed the drug test, right? But this is an age of no digital communication. That information did not hit the public newsstands until around the month of May or June. And by that time, I had already continued on training. I'd met with Joe Weider. I was already qualified for the Mr. Olympia, and all he could say is, you're qualified for the Olympia. Don't make that mistake again. Otherwise, it's curtains. The Mr. Olympia was going to be drug tested. Just so happens in 1990 in Chicago, September, it was also where Vince McMahon launched his brand new WBF Bodybuilding Federation and walked off with 13 IFBB pros, one of which was Barry DeMay from the Netherlands, Gary Stridham, Aaron Baker, Mike Quinn, Jim Quinn, Mike Christian, David Dirth, Danny Padilla, Tony Pearson, and my former training partner, Troy Zucolato. They all left to the WBF for guaranteed contracts while the Mr. Olympia was taking place in 1990. And I'm there. And this time they get it backwards. They do the drug testing on Friday, and they get the drug test back on Friday. So the only way to get on the stage is if you pass the test. I happened to pass the test. And of course, going on to that competition the following night, I wound up going from 13th place in 1988 all the way up to third place in my second Mr. Olympia. I got to keep the prize money. And the only way I felt I could redeem myself after passing that test and getting the prize money was to go back to Columbus, Ohio. So in 1991, I went back to Columbus, Ohio, increased the prize money to $70,000. And at 25 years old, I duplicated the feat of winning in 1990, kept the $70,000, got the Arnold Classic trophy, which is right here over my head. I'm going to show you real quick. I don't know if you can see it. You see that? Can you see the trophy? That's from 1991. Yeah. It's a 1991 Arnold Classic trophy. And I redeemed myself because at that point in time, they got rid of all the steroid testing. Lo and behold, what happened? In 1 year, they threw all the drug tests out. I'll tell you why. In 1990, when I failed the test, there were 6 other bodybuilders that failed the test. At the Mr. Olympia, there were 6 other bodybuilders that failed the test. If they were going to continue doing what they were trying to do in the sport of bodybuilding, they were ultimately going to wind up with no bodybuilders. Yep. Because there's different functions. When you say the word steroids, everybody thinks a needle and a syringe. But if you think of steroids the way you think of automobiles, you will now know that there is a whole range of choices, just like there are with cars.
Shawn, you know me. I'm obnoxious. I'm the interrupter, and I'm going to do it. I'm digging in, and I'm going to go another direction, man. I'm sorry. You said, let's save the education on anabolics for another time, and I would love that.
Okay.
I want to ask you this. You said you needed to redeem yourself.
Yes.
What does that mean? Now, you got caught. I get it. You redeemed yourself because you came back and won the next year. But what was happening in your brain and in your heart when you had to go into your mother's home and take that trophy off the mat? I want to know how you felt and how you dealt with that.
Yeah, it was a hard one because my mom didn't know what steroids were. She didn't know what the whole thing was. She was more concerned about the fact that she had gone house shopping with me. I knew I was going to win the contest. She was there 2 weeks prior when I won it at the Ironman, and we were going to pretty much duplicate what happened in Redondo Beach in Ohio against pretty much the same lineup with a few different people thrown in. But I was confident I was going to win, and so was she. And by not being able to keep that prize money, I wasn't able to buy the house that I was trying to buy. I was planning on it. My mom had gone to help pick it out with me. So that's the thing called counting your chickens before they hatch. And so my redemption came from the fact that Joe Weider was very understanding, reminding me that I was still qualified for the Mr. Olympia, and I still had an opportunity to pass a drug test. It wasn't like I felt like I was Ben Johnson of bodybuilding, but I also know in my psyche that almost everyone else was doing it. I didn't justify my use of that, but it's the sport of bodybuilding. And there are things that you can do that you get on at a certain time and you get off at a certain time. There's water-based anabolics. I was just trying to say, Rick, in talking about anabolics, there's so many different varieties that they don't just come in a needle and a syringe. And it's not just for the advantage of being big, because again, I was one of the smaller guys. There's things that you use for recovery, things that you use for hardness, things that you use for definition and muscle retention. But it was a long walk into my mom's house, to that fireplace, explaining to her that I was a loser, feeling like a loser. And mind you, I was the only one that could deliver that trophy to Gold's Gym, a place I was celebrated, and a place that I trained regularly, and a place that they did not know what the hell I was doing. The gym manager knew. But when I brought the trophy in and sat it down, most people thought I was showing it off for a little while because it sat there for about a week. And I was there, in and out of the gym. There was the Arnold Classic trophy. In the Gold's Gym, when you check in to register, you can see the trophy. And then it was gone. And I have to come in there, and I've got to explain to people because it's not circulating at the rate that we communicate today. Yeah. The only way you know is if you called Gold's Gym for the results or if somebody told you, and it was snail mail. So half the people thought I was still the Arnold Classic champion.
I know this is Rick's kind of spot, but my view is how that make you feel. Like, did you go into depression, or how did you cope that? Because me, I'd been curled up in the bed for a month. I wouldn't have wanted to go nowhere. I'll be honest with you.
I got to tell you, Butterbean,
how did you cope with that?
There was no depression. There was getting right back to work. I had a tour that I had already arranged prior to the Arnold Classic that was taking me around the world up until September, almost August, I should say. So I think because I was busy and I was pre-booked and I was coming off that Arnold Classic and I was getting the affirmation from people as I was doing my seminars and appearances saying it was all bullshit, right? Like they didn't make me feel maybe like Ben Johnson felt, because I think people just kind of understand the dynamics of bodybuilding. It's a very forgiving sport if you're a bodybuilder. A lot of bodybuilders were doing what I was doing, and before the grace of God, some of us may not have to experience a steroid test, but there's a lot of bodybuilders that had been using it. And I don't think any of us looked at it as something that was like cocaine or freaking, crack. So it was kind of more of an acceptable drug in the 90s. And having to explain to my mom that I would be back and that I would redeem myself was tougher to actually make myself believe and actually do. So when I moved into third place in the Olympia, and I passed the drug test, and we knew that Friday night, and I was able to call my mom and say, I passed the test. Now she says, go out and win it. Well, I'm going up against a 6-time Mr. Olympia, Lee Haney. It's easier said than done. I got Lee Labrada in this show. I got Rich Gaspari. I can't just go out and win the Olympia. It would be nice, but I'm going out there trying to win this thing drug-free. In my mind, I'm going up Mount Everest, and I don't know what these guys are going to look like, but I do know the bigger bodybuilders were not going to be as impressive drug-free. So in my mind, I thought, this is going to favor me going into this show because they're all going to be a lot smaller than they normally would. And I'm already small anyways, and I'm not going to be that much smaller than I was. And lo and behold, I got third place, and I was celebrated. So, Eric, before depression could set in, I got the affirmation from Joe Weider. My training partners were pushing me even harder, and I had the belief that I could actually win the 1990 Mr. Olympia. By getting third place for me, that was as best I could ever do. I sailed into the 91 Arnold Classic Championships got the $70,000 check, bought the house, and I got the trophy. I took it from my mom. I said, "You're not getting this one. This one's mine."
Sean, thank you, man. Really appreciate you sharing all of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we're gonna deliver as promised. We have a bunch of questions to answer, but I want to ask you guys 2 questions first, if you don't mind. This one actually is for Sean. So we're talking a lot about anabolics. This question's out of nowhere. Don't think. I want a fast answer. John Cena, steroids or no steroids?
In his early years, I think, yeah. I think he started out trying to be a bodybuilder than a wrestler.
I have to ask because John's very public saying that he's never used anabolics. And I look at his body. So I wonder, you're an expert. I was just curious what you would say.
I would think something, yes.
All right, cool. Question for all you guys. We're going to have guests on every week going forward. Throw out a couple of fantasy names real quickly. Boss, who should we have on the show?
Oh, I don't know. I'm good with everybody. You know, I'm the kind of guy who also says, "Hey, let's pitch a guy from the gym somewhere, an amateur fighter who just starts his career and see why he chooses that." Because these people, they never get a light, you know. And if you think about it, it could be very interesting. We don't know, you know. Maybe it's a reason to play. Yeah, so. Maybe there could be a side podcast or something we're doing, you know, for the people. Because most of the time, everybody wants a famous person. I think JBL will be great. I think Ken Shamrock is freaking awesome. To have Morrow, if he can be thrown in the mix, and I'm pretty sure we'll do it, that will be a very cool one. But, you know, actors. I got Holt McCallany, a buddy of mine. You know, he's the lead actor from Mindhunter. That's a great guy. What about Mickey Rourke? You know, maybe get him.
That would be really cool. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I got some friends that I can ask, you know, and fighters, fighters galore.
Mickey's got some good stories. As a matter of fact, boss, last time I was with Mickey, I was with Shamrock and James Toney out here in Los Angeles at a boxing thing. He's a great storyteller, Mickey. He's seen it all.
Yeah. No, he's been everywhere. I met him the first time like in 2002 all the way in Japan. We went to Gonpachi. Gonpachi is that restaurant where Kill Bill was filmed, you know, the big fighting scene in that restaurant. Yeah. So that was very bad. We went to the screening of that movie, Dark City. What was it again? The black and white movie, Dark City or City of something. Anyway, it was
Sin City. Yes.
And it was cool because he was on the stage and there was this big poster, and now because I was in the audience, I think he wanted to show off. So suddenly he gave that freaking big poster a kick. And it flew all over the place, and he started laughing. Yeah, he's a funny guy, man. He's an amazing person.
Mickey Rourke would be perfect. I will make an effort for sure. I love that idea. And the amateur fighter is a great idea.
Yeah.
Bean, who should we have on? Bean, who should we have on the show?
He used to play football for a little bit, Brett Favre. I'm going to reach out to him this week.
Brett Favre, Jesus.
Brett goes through a lot of stuff, especially with his wife having breast cancer, and that's how I met him, doing some cancer fundraisers. And I think Brett would bring a good story to the evening.
Yeah,
I think Brett would be great. I don't know him. Brett was one of the first guys on Cameo. Here comes a plug for Cameo. I just thought of it. He does great on Cameo. I would love to have him on.
I'll get the word to him.
Perfect. Please do. And as long as I brought it up, I want to let everybody out there know, guess who's on Cameo? Sean Ray, Butterbean, and Bas Rutten. So you can go get them.
Yeah. Amazing.
There you go. Sean, who should we have on as guests?
Good question. There's so many different types of personality. I know Michael Jai White. He's got a lot of good stories. He's got a lot of history as well. He's out of Arizona. Got good friends with a couple of my buddies. I mean, obviously, I love Ronnie Coleman. I just had Ronnie Coleman by myself. I did an interview with him, and, you know, 8 Mr. Olympia trophies, back surgeries, quadricep injuries, hip surgeries. Ronnie Coleman's been through it all. He's a good one in bodybuilding anyways.
I think I don't know him, but I know of him. If you could talk with Ronnie and with Michael, they'd both be fantastic, man. That would be really cool. And both would be fun. And guys, you know who I want to try to get? I want to try to get Dana White and Vince McMahon. I think that would be interesting.
On the same show.
Well, this week, Mr. Olympia weekend, Stephanie McMahon's getting inducted in the Hall of Fame, put on by Ron Goldman out at the Olympia in Orlando, Florida.
I'm in that too. I got
Rick,
inducted a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Bas did, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a nice one. It's really nice. Very well
Yeah, I
done.
missed it because they run it during the show, like during the expo, and it's the timeline's all screwed up. This time I have a chance to watch it. They're gonna bring in Marcus Allen, Stephanie McMahon, and a few other people, so that'll be kind of cool. I think Don the Dragon Wilson.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Don is nice.
Hey, boss, Libby just brought up a good name, a good friend of mine that would be really good for the show, Laborio.
Oh, yeah.
Ricardo Laborio.
I've known him for probably 35 years now. Really good guy.
I really love that guy. Yeah, it was. I met him first time in China, and I was rolling with some guys in the club, and it was a really cool compliment because he was sitting there, and he thought I was a striker, and then and he was sitting like this. He goes like, "Holy crap!" He said, "I didn't know. I didn't know." So it was. I go, "Man, that's really cool coming from you." So, yeah, I impressed him to impress a guy like that because he's a phenom on the ground. That is pretty cool.
Laborio is a great idea. Laborio is a great idea. I think we should go for it.
His daughter is blind, right? His daughter is blind, and she's doing jiu-jitsu.
Right. She's
unbelievable.
Probably 4 years or 5 years before his daughter was born.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, he's a good person too, man. I really like him.
Well, we will target Mr. Laborio for sure, and we also have coming up 4 weeks from tonight, Mick Foley. So our guest lineup so far is we have Kurt Angle, we have Mick Foley, and we have Ken Shamrock coming up. Good start. Aha. Sean's got the sock. Got what do you call it, Mr. Socko, right?
Socko.
That's really cool. I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna send Mick
from WrestleMania 15 for my kids. He give it to us. Mick's a great guy.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I'm gonna send
Benny Urquidez or Jean-Claude for the win. Benny Urquidez.
What was it?
Okay, who's talking?
Yeah, I was supposed to be in a movie with John Claude, but his producer thought I'd overshadow him, so they pulled out of it.
Well, you overshadow a lot of people.
Yeah, Benny Urquidez or Jean-Claude Van Damme. Trust me, Benny Urquidez. He's a freaking animal, this guy. Yeah. I saw him fight in Holland, destroying this the Dutch guy. Everybody hated him when he came in, and after the third round, it was like a Rocky movie. Everybody was cheering for him and booing the Dutch guy. It was amazing. He flipped the whole audience. Animal.
So let's answer some questions.
100% with you.
Enough of them yet.
What did you say, Eric?
I think we should answer a good bit of questions. We haven't had a chance to get to a good bit of them.
Yeah. Let's do some questions.
Yes, we're. I'm noticing some glitches here.
Go down and let's get some questions out there for us.
Yes. I'm looking for them, and John and Rachel have them coming for us. So while we're waiting for that, while we're waiting, let's do some fantasy fight questions, Mr. Rutten, Mr. Butterbean, and Mr. Shawn Ray. Hey. Dana White versus Vince McMahon. Just kidding. That's all right. Who has the best physique in pro wrestling? Romanowski is asking. Best physique in pro wrestling.
I like the Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior was built. He was stacked.
Yep.
Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior had a good physique. As a matter of fact, I think he competed.
The one in the wheelchair.
He did. He was a competition bodybuilder before he started training for wrestling. Yes.
Yeah.
Now Lex Luger also had an awesome
Lex Luger too. Yeah, I worked out at his gym out in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. He used to have a gym out there, Lex Luger.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Sean, I don't know if you know this, Sean, but I discovered and trained the Ultimate Warrior back in 1985. And I've got a Warrior and Sting at the same time. We all lived in the same house together in Reseda in the Valley. And, so I introduced Jim and Steve to pro wrestling. and the rest they say is history.
It's history,
And,
yeah.
I'll tell you some Ultimate Warrior stories sometimes that will like curl your toenails, man. That was one crazy ML. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all those wrestlers
Boss.
were much longer, right? They're a lot taller, so they couldn't get the girth, that a shorter bodybuilder could. Tom Platz or myself, we looked a lot bigger because we're proportionately shorter. But the taller guys, hard to pack on that weight with that height. But the Ultimate Warrior wore it well.
Agreed. So, boss, Mint Diggity is asking Diaz or Lawler.
Yeah, I saw that. And man, it's such a hard thing you will go with Diaz. He's so durable. Lawler is though when he connects. I mean, you can beat Diaz, but he can't knock everybody out. That power that he has, it's just bizarre. I remember Melvin Manhoef is fighting him. I think it was a Bellator even. And I mean, he's getting destroyed. His legs, he can't walk anymore. And Manhoef gets overconfident, and he comes in with one more low kick, and he goes poof, one punch, out cold. And Manhoef is an animal. So that's the thing. I think Diaz, because he kept on fighting, I think he might win it, especially if it goes to a decision. But if there's a knockout, a stoppage, it could also come in the early rounds, especially from Lawler, because he's so freaking powerful. It's a hard one.
Hey, Bean, of all the fights you've had, Bean, do you think you remember all the guys that you fought, or is it just like this blur?
I've had over 300 pro fights. It's a blur. Yeah. I've met guys that actually fought, and I said, "You remember fighting me?" I'm like, "No, I didn't know that." But I mean, the people in the woman that come up, "Do you remember me?" Of course I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking because we have a question. Do you remember fighting Don Kaminsky? And my first question is, who's Don Kaminsky? I don't know that name. Do you?
I don't know, Rick. I don't remember him.
Oh my gosh! A guy you do remember, Larry Holmes.
I do remember fighting Larry Holmes.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I'm just having people. I had a person who said to me one time, and she was getting very angry because I did not recognize her, and she said hi to me 4 years ago before that date, and she was sitting behind me at King of the Cage with her husband. And then I said, oh no, I'm sorry, I don't remember. And she got offended.
Wow. How are you going to remember that, right? It's impossible.
It's impossible. So
trick is if they're attractive, you always remember them.
Yeah, that's true.
Let them talk.
Lucy, right? Lucy.
Speaking of remembering people, I have a total out of left field question. Okay. MMA, boxing, pro wrestling for sure has groupies. Shawn, does bodybuilding have groupies? And what's that scene like? I'm dying to know.
Yeah, I mean, not like we think of like a rock and roll or basketball players. I mean, listen, you got a lot of people in the gym training for fitness, very likable type of interests, probably pretty easy to meet somebody that has something in common. I met my wife in a gym. So, I don't think it's like girls that show up at the basketball game and are hanging out for the basketball players or entertainers, rock and roll stars. They're kind of waiting for that autograph and see what they can do. Bodybuilding didn't have the party atmosphere. Like after it's over, there wasn't that place you go after a bodybuilder. We're going to eat, right? So, right. I mean, you have a lot of things in common when you go to the gym and there's girls there. I mean, that's normal, right? But if you're a basketball player, you're playing with a bunch of guys in an arena, and then you go and you play in a basketball arena. You have all these people waiting to be entertained, and then you go out to the clubs and you run into people that have just got done watching you play. It's a different thing.
Yep.
We're sorry for you, man.
Yeah, they weren't at the steakhouse when the bodybuilding show's over. When the show's over, they're not at the steakhouse waiting for you at the feeding trough. They're not sitting around. Hey, is he coming in here to Sizzler to eat?
Like Butterbean, I know that you and I we'll talk pretty freely about that kind of stuff. And Shawn, I still really don't know you yet, so I don't know what we're allowed to talk about, not talk about. Boss, I know you kind of keep it pretty cool these days, which is great.
I mean, Libby knows. I mean, my wife. I mean, she's been around me forever, so she knows I wasn't always good.
Libby's the greatest. And I want a big shout out to Libby Esch, Mrs. Butterbean, who's just like the salt of the earth. And I love Libby, man. And I know she's so cool to be able to like talk with, talk to, talk around. So I guess we can always tell those stories, Bean, right?
You know, Libby knows a lot of deep, dark secrets too. So, you know, that's always good blackmail material for her, you know.
Here's a great, I love this question. Boss, I asked Tank Abbott how to escape when 2 or more guys corner you in a bar. He said to ask Bas Rutten. So Tank Abbott was sending someone to you for bar fight advice. How do you escape from 2 guys having you cornered in a bar?
Well, that's hard. You need the distraction right there, you know, because if it's literally cornered and you're in the corner and they're both here, the good part is you have both in front of you. Nobody can sneak up behind. Like in a big fight, if a fight breaks out, that's where you find me. It's either I'm against the wall or in the corner, because then I can at least see everybody coming. And then hopefully something is close by, like a stool, a bar stool or something that you can put in between and can hold somebody away with. But most of the time, distraction, you know, looking behind you and like, come over, you know, like somebody's there and they look away and then just sprint out. That would be a smart thing to do. That actually I used also as a bouncer one time, looking over somebody's shoulder, like very gentle, you know, like just go like this. Like, hey, come. And then they turn around, and as soon as they turn around, you get them in a rear naked choke. You know, because if they're drunk, I always say that in the early days, I would simply choke them out. I don't want to beat them up. They don't know what they're doing. Why would I beat their faces in? So put them to sleep, put the zip ties on, call the cops, and let them take away. That was my way of doing it. Yeah, so distraction is the most important. And in the case when you have nothing, yeah, looking behind you and just do very confident, like, come over. They will turn around. That's your moment to escape.
Good advice.
Just distract. That's great. Hey, speaking of Tank Abbott and speaking of fantasy fights, who do you guys think would have won this one? Can you see that?
Tank versus, who is he again?
That is Tank and Butterbean faced off right there.
What is Butterbean? There's no way. He's not taller than you, right?
Yeah, he's taller.
Is Tank taller than you? I thought, no.
I used to train at my gym.
Right.
He used to train at Powerhouse Gym in Fountain Valley, Tank Abbott in Huntington Beach. Used to see him all the time with Tito. Yeah. Back when it started in the early 90s.
My money is on Butterbean.
Yeah, the Bean, man.
If you look at Bean's record too, you know, you've never been knocked out also, right? You got a TKO, but you have never been out. Yeah, you see what I mean? And the amount of fighters that you had, including Larry Holmes and all these guys. I mean, and then you look at your record, and then you look how many people you knocked out. I mean, it's freaking impressive, man. It really is.
Let me ask a question, though. What do y'all think about Jake Paul and his brother making all the money they're making for? I mean, I don't think they're legitimate fighters. What is y'all view on that?
I think they're great marketers, man. Listen, you got to give them props. We're living in an age where social media can make you a star, not literally overnight, but if you know how to manage it, you can get a lot of people following you. They have millions of people following them, right? So they can come out with a supplement product and sell, you know, a percentage. They sell 10% of the millions of people that they got. They're going to make millions of dollars. These guys are following them on this boxing. Most people tune in to see if they're going to get their ass kicked, and they're just picking the right fighters that aren't kicking their ass yet. I mean, what is it, 2-0, 3-0? I mean, they haven't fought much, but they've created enough stir.
The commission's allowing some of the fights go on that are going on. Back in my day, same with Boss, a lot of the commissions wouldn't approve them.
But isn't this the same as celebrity boxing? I mean, anybody can fight anybody. I mean, I remember watching Screech fight someone. Tanya Harding was on there fighting. Paula, whatever her name is from the president thing, Paula, whatever her name is. But anybody can fight. Anybody can get a sanction. And it's not a fight, right? It is an exhibition.
That's a demonstration.
That's the difference.
They're actually fighting fights right now.
But they're not fighting. There was nothing at stake when Jake Paul and Logan Paul fought. There was no belt on the line. There was nothing. There was no prize money to be won. It wasn't a winner take all. They were guaranteed money from the percentages of sales. This is a marketing thing.
No, that's what a pro fight is, though. When I fought, I never, like in boxing, you never got a guaranteed winner. Very few did. If you won, you got more money. You had a set rate going in. You knew what you were going to make.
You fought for a federation. That's the difference. You were in a federation, and it had to be sanctioned by the state or the county or the government. This is an exhibition that is not even. it's it's a money making machine. And hey, if Kim Kardashian got out there and fought some chick, right? Somebody calls her out, she's got 200 million followers. I mean, and you put it on pay-per-view for $100, people are going to tune in for that.
Yeah. Hey, Bean, I have to.
When we were going through our physicals in California, Rick, that's why California wouldn't sanction Gooberhead that just fought. Evander.
Yes. Yeah. Holyfield.
California is tighter, but I have to agree with Shawn. I mean, I love the fight sport, and I like to consider myself a purist and want to know who the best fighter is. But at the end of the day, man, it's business. And the Pauls have managed to kind of catch lightning in a bottle. Could Bas Rutten or Butterbean in their primes beat the Pauls? Yeah, blindfolded with your arms tied behind your back. But it's business. It's like this. Maybe a bad analogy, maybe not. You probably don't know who Leela James is. If you don't, search her on Spotify later. One of the most beautiful vocalists you've ever heard in the world, and very technical, blow your mind. 1,000 times better than Britney Spears, who sells 1,000 times more tickets than Leela James.
It's perfect.
It's for better or for worse, it's business. So the opportunity, why not capitalize?
Here's what I like to see. I like to see Jake or Logan Paul fight Amanda Nunes. I mean, that's a money maker.
I wouldn't fight them. But I'm thinking with you. They do be professional. They work their asses off. They train every day. I mean, it's not like they make fun of boxing. They actually show, and I like the last message that he gave Jake Paul afterwards.
They're trying, but I think they should have to work their way up and have 10 or 15, 20 fights before they get that kind of big payday on a pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, but this is the thing. This is the thing. They bring in the 5 or 20 million people. That's them doing it. It's not the boxers doing it, so they control it. So, yeah. And I thought also the story with Jake Paul afterwards when he said, listen, I used to be a bully. I bullied people around, and this sport really put me in my place. Now I realize that I was an asshole, and I want to change. So he's talking good about boxing, brings boxing to the light. Sure, they're never going to box somebody who's really good. I mean, but he trains with DJ Flores. He's a buddy of mine. He's a great coach. So they take this stuff serious, bring in the money, man. I mean, these guys every 30, 40 million bucks. It's insanity.
That's good. Some of these guys are making money.
Somebody else asked me a question about how my cardio was. Just like them guys, I worked my butt off to get good cardio. I had to run, and that's part of my problem now is why I got such a bad hip, because I get out and run on the road. When you put 350-pound running, you tear shit up.
And I remember when you were running. I can attest that Bean trained his ass off. And our producers are giving me a note. We're going to go to a little ID break, and we're going to come back with a war story.
Boom.
Talking tough, the world's toughest men and women at their most vulnerable. Join Rick, Shawn, Bas, and Butterbean, plus very special guests live every Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, right at talking-tough.com. You could also see him on YouTube at the Hannibal TV or Rick Bassman. You can check him out on Facebook at the Rick Bassman, the real Shawn Ray, and of course at Bas Rutten. Also, check out Rick on Twitter and Instagram at Rick_Bassman. Reminder, folks, Bas, Rick, Shawn Ray, and Butterbean every Wednesday night, live, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, for Talking Tough.
And thank you, John Paz, for that. We appreciate it. And we're going to move on. First, though, as far as special guests go, October 6th, we're going to be joined here by Kurt Angle. October 20th, Mick Foley. November 3rd, Ken Shamrock. Everyone mark your calendars, please. Looking forward to those very much. And thank you, Mr. E-Face, freaking legends. That's for you three guys, and I agree wholeheartedly. Okay, war stories, outrageous, big, the crazier, the better. Who could be better for that than Bas Rutten?
Well, this one is not going to be a super big story, but it really affected me in my life. It was actually my first fight. People, the fans who are watching right now, they heard me telling this story many, many, many times. Because that's what was this very sick kid. And skin disease. So skin disease, had to wear gloves. My arms every night. My mother had to mummify me. That's what we call it. And the family would send in old bed sheets to put all creams on me. I will rip that off in the middle of the night. I mean, a lot of work she had with me. Asthma attacks will be a week in bed, not able to eat because I couldn't. It's not a little cough, like completely done. You cannot. That's for 12. That was really, really hard. I need to go to school. The lab in school. That's what they called me. Hey, boss, watch out. If I would snap my fingers, watch out your finger don't fall off. Or scratch my ear, watch out your ear don't fall off. So that went on for years. And then till I was 12 years old. So from 6 till 12. So the meaningful years are like from 10 till 12. Every day on a daily basis, everybody expelling you. I was always by myself. You slowly but surely, you get really aggravated. Everybody pointing fingers. And then I saw a Bruce Lee movie, and that changed my life. And that took me 2 years to convince my parents to allow me to do martial arts. And finally, they allowed me after 2 years of begging. They broke, and I was taken under the wing by this adult, and I went to adult classes. And from that moment on, everything went really fast. And I mean, in months, I was beating some of the adults. Of course, not the big ones, but I was dropping adults as a kid. And I heard these adults talking about me in the dressing room. And of course, when you only hear bad things about you from other kids, but adults say, man, this kid got a lot of talent. He just dropped Jack with the back kick to the body. Did you see that? People laughing. I go, okay. So I started listening and I realized I had some talent. And then I got into the biggest fight for me at that time was with Chucky. That was his name. And he was the biggest bully in my school. Bad family. His brother was in jail for robbery. It was just bad people. And he, sure enough, he set some 6 of his body screaming at me, hey, Bas Rutten, watch out. Something doesn't fall off. It's always something about leprosy. And this time I shouted something back. And I heard him laugh, and I looked like, and sure enough, they took a spin, and they started to chase me. And I told myself, that's not going to happen. I put my bike on the stand, and I was just waiting for them. They surrounded me with the bikes. In the movies, it's always with the cars, and the headlights are lighting. With me, it was bicycles during the day. And then Shaki came, and he started bouncing his chest in my hand. He told me, come on, leper, hit me. So I did what he asked me to do, and I knocked him out. It was one punch. It was an amazing thing. Boom, he was out. His nose was flat on his face. There was a problem. Everybody's freaking out. Not his real friends. That's where I found out those weren't his real friends. They were just afraid of him, and that's why they joined him. And the problem was that he broke his nose, had to go to the doctor, and of course, then the police was called, and they showed up at my mom and dad's doorstep, and they immediately took me off martial arts because saying it was violence. Now, I told I 100% guarantee they would have kept me. But what I learned from that lesson was because it was the first time I was standing up for myself. I took so much crap, and at that moment, everything came in that one punch. It was so easy, and it looked so easy. And now I became the bully guy. Like somebody bullied another person in school. Guess who took care of that guy? I started going after everybody, and I had a really good feeling for it. But on the other side of the story, I think that guy also I taught him a lesson. Because those guys, they don't speak language; they speak violence. And the only way to do something against the person, I said, talking didn't work. Tried me. I tried that for 9 years, but one punch solved the whole deal. So always I get these. I was the fitness guru for Cartoon Network. I did the anti-bullying campaign. And, when they ask me, you cannot say that you knocked him out, I said, I'm not going to do it. I mean, I tried that. I tried that for 9 years. It never worked. One punch did work. And guess what? That guy didn't bully anybody anymore. I taught him a lesson because it always builds up. It gets more and more. We were talking about it last week, Rick, about that famous guy who was challenging me at the airport, right? And he tried to intimidate me. He's standing next to me like at all him with his cornerman. They were looking at me. And I'm standing there and I go like, and everybody was afraid of this guy. And he bullied everybody. Big stories about this guy. But he had never somebody call his bluff. And I realized we're at an airport. There's no weapons. That means you're going to lose, dude, because I'm not going to lose to your ass. So I turned and I put my nose against his nose. Touched him. And I've never seen anybody back down so fast. I mean, literally, I'm there like, are you guys serious? Like, nothing? You got nothing? And even people started laughing in the row. I guarantee you, after that story, that person probably didn't bully people anymore because now he knows how it's solved. If they don't get stopped, they only get more and more and more because they feel more strong and more strong. Somebody has to put him down in his place, and at that moment, you change his life for the better because he can also find a kid that does this, poof, and shoots him in the face. To me, it was just me intimidating him. So I think both parties are helped And unfortunately, sometimes violence is the only language they speak. You have to use violence back, only more violence, because then you teach them a lesson. So that's the big take-up that I have. You always, the junkie or the addict, it doesn't matter. When do you start learning? When do you stop? Is when they say when you hit rock bottom, right? Now the only way is to come up, and that's the same with the bully. He's here on a high, on a high, on a high, poof. And now suddenly he's back on the low, realizes, oh crap, I did that to other people. Now you know how it feels. Cause and effect. And I think it teaches a lot of people. So I'm all about beating people up if they are bullying you. Warn them before. I say, listen, this is going to be a fight. But yeah, I have no problem with that. Fighting with the hands, right? No weapons, no shooting, you know. But the high school shootings, we talk about that, you know. People go like, oh, that's stupid. I can completely understand that. I can completely understand that. Do I condone it? Of course I condone it. But there was a moment in my life that I remember, and maybe I told this on the story. Did I tell this here when I swinged at the tree? Was swinging with the fighters? Yeah. So kids could bully me, right? And it broke, and then I went home and got a knife. And my mother saw me, thankfully, on the street with a knife, and she started to chase me. And she caught me before school, because my school was 300 yards away from my home. And she got me. And until this day, I don't know what I would have done, but I think I would have. I was so, it was, everything came out, and it was so, I can 100% guarantee somebody shooting somebody. It's wrong, I know. But I mean, you get pushed to a certain limit, and suddenly it's the drop that makes the bucket flow, and that's it. You lose control, and then you go. You know, it doesn't matter anymore what happens. And that's the part I never want to be again at, because that was very scary.
You're obviously not advocating violence or losing control. I can hear that.
Yeah.
And I know you're not. I know that. So if you don't mind, I kind of would like to tell you my bully experience in a moment, because I'm wondering where you were when I was 13 years old and needed you. You were probably 8, so not much you could have done. But I'm sure. Boss, someone's getting bullied. What do they do, man?
Knowing that it's only their rocking year, so to say. It's only 4 years in school. That's it. From that moment on, because it's proven their IQs are lower, you know. Of course, there's exceptions, but the most of them, they're not smart people. They come from a broken home, realize that they come from a home where probably violence is a thing, and that's why they're doing it. They just look at things when they see the father beating the mother. Well, that's the way to settle problems. They automatically start doing that. So knowing that there's something going on with the bully as well, you know, that might give you a little bit of a soft spot, and not to do a crazy thing, but I mean, you have to ask parents. You have to tell your parents, and you don't want to do this, because I didn't want to do this, but that was also because I was, you know, already a trouble kid with all the creams and all that stuff. But go to an adult and say, listen, this is just not working. But the problem nowadays in school is when a kid bullies a kid, and you call the parents in, the kid are siding with the parents are coming up for the kids, you know, because that's where they got the violence from. You know, and now suddenly they go, no, you know, like if my daughter is wrong, she's wrong. I don't care who you are. You're wrong. You're wrong. If I find out they bully somebody, well, they know my story. It will never happen, because they're not going to be happy. I can tell you that. So getting help from an adult, and hopefully otherwise call the A-team, the team that we have right here, and maybe we come by and then we'll talk to the kids in school. What about that?
Larry Medina just wrote, Boss handing out free lessons. And I got to say this, man. I mean, Boss, we've been good friends for a long time, but I got to step back and be a fan there for a minute. Because again, as I said earlier, in my mind, you were/are the toughest guy to walk this earth. I really believe that. And we just got advice from Bas Rutten on bullying. That's pretty effing cool. So, thank you.
Not that tough. But
can I share my weird bully story just to bore you guys for a second?
Yes, please.
I'd love to do this. It's kind of weird. So I was 13 years old, and my mother, who was the closest person in the world to me, she died very suddenly, shockingly, out of nowhere. And I was a mess. Didn't really know how to deal with it. My dad had to go work. We had no money. He had to go on the road to pay the bills, left me and my brother on our own. He didn't abandon us. He was a good dad. So we kind of became little junior criminal masterminds, started taking drugs, 12 and 13, doing a lot of drinking and whatnot. Now, my mom, when she was alive, she was a big, larger-than-life character. She would always like to try kind of experimental stuff with us, take us to the Braille School for the Blind one day. We'd have to wear blindfolds the whole day. She would do cool stuff like that. So my mom thought, we grew up Jewish. We're not religious, but we grew up in a Jewish household. My mom thought it'd be a cool social experiment to enroll her Jewish son in an all-Catholic school. So,
Okay.
yes, exactly. So you already know what's coming, right? So, right, exactly. 3 months after my mom dies, and I'm very shell-shocked over my mom. I never dealt with it. There was no therapy in 1975 or whatever it was. I go to this school just fried about my mom being gone. My dad, nicest guy in the world, wasn't emotional, didn't really know how to deal with things. I get to the school. I realized 2 things on the very first day. I'm the only non-Catholic in the entire school, and I'm also the shortest kid in the school. Not the shortest boy, the shortest kid, the girls included.
The girls.
Great start, right? Great start. So I'm standing there like a deer in the headlights. Big kid, at least to me, he was big then. Peruvian guy named Michael Darwin. I'll never forget him.
Yeah.
Walks up to me and goes, "You Jewish?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And guys, boom, right cross, just laid me out right on the ground. And so that was the first day of 7th grade.
Wow.
And from that day on, and I see Bean kind of like smiling and going, "Where's this going?" I in no way believe I'm a tough guy like you guys are, but the story is just so out there, I have to tell it. So that first day, I got knocked out. First time I've ever been hit in the head. I fought every single day that first year in school, sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. So when you say I fought 200 times in a year, it sounds like a bullshit exaggeration, but it was defense. And this is the mid-70s. There were no adults to go to. My dad was on the road. I'm in a Catholic school. The brothers, the fathers, they all look the other way. You know, kids playing in a playground. That's okay, right? It's not. But anyway, about a couple months in, I started swinging back. No idea how to throw, right? That's how I threw punches back then. A little better now. So anyway, I started winning some fights. And then I realized, there's a happy ending of this. I have to tell it because there's always, if you look forward enough, there's always a chance to come out of it, I think. Started winning some fights. And then I realized one day I'm kind of becoming popular, oddly enough. So the end of the school year comes up and they hold the student body elections. There's only 4 offices in the whole school. It's a small school. So to perpetuate the stereotype of being Jewish, I decided to run for student body treasurer, of course. And
Treasurer.
So I had to do it. I don't know if I realized the irony at the time, but I get it now for sure. Yeah. So they're going to announce the results that night at the dance, the end of year dance. So 3 things happened that night. 1, I was announced as the winner of student body treasurer. 2, I beat the shit out of Michael Darwin. And 3, I made out with Debbie Sanders, the hottest girl in school in front of the entire student body. That was the end of that.
Who says that violence doesn't pay, right?
Right. It's all turned out okay. Turned out okay, but no, I don't advocate fighting on the schoolyard. That's not what I'm getting at for sure.
Oh man, that was funny. The treasury guy.
Student body treasurer, baby. Count that money. Boss, Paul Sykes wants to know, have you ever been intimidated by anyone? And let's say past the time you came through being picked on. Has anybody ever intimidated you?
Well, there's this weird thing with me. Yeah, I will be intimidated, but I have a thing over me. Like I never lost a street fight. You know, I have this thing that I shoot in a bubble, which I have in a fight also. It's really weird. I'm completely cut off from the outside world. Don't get me wrong. I hear exactly what you're saying, but the only focus is on that. And once something becomes really bad, I just trust that feeling. You know, that's why I have these weird things. Like I can see 6 guys do something to somebody, like a kid or a woman or whatever. I'll go in there. You know, and then while I'm walking over, I was talking to the show. I go like, why am I doing this? I'm literally thinking to myself, why am I doing this? You know, but then I just trust the feeling, because if I'm right, that means if I'm how do you say it? If I'm not bad, but I'm doing this for the good, I cannot lose. That's what I always thought. And since I never lose for a fight, I only do it for pure defense. Like people say, oh, you've been in so many street fights. I haven't been in so many street fights. And you have to understand that if I'm in a street fight, I try to diffuse that at least 5 times. That's how I am all the time. And then once suddenly it goes, that's when the drop hits the bucket again. And then suddenly I go, oh, wait a minute. Or they start, then I see that they believe that I'm afraid because I don't want to fight. And then I tell them, I say, whoa, wait. You don't believe I'm afraid, right? I'm afraid for you. That's what we're doing here right now, because I will stomp your head. You see, and then it starts. Then I got into this thing. And then most of the time they back off. If they don't back off, then there is a fight. So, and that didn't happen a lot. If I had 35 fights, and I was a bouncer, that would be a lot. But there's these stories that I had 200 street fights. Come on, man. I need anger management with a record like that.
Or you have to be a short Jewish kid in a Catholic school for that to happen.
But you see, in your case, I bring a baseball bat. That happens to me with all these big guys. I'll bring a baseball bat.
I'll tell you, I'm a little bit opposite of both of you guys, because being a bodybuilder, I know the fragility of getting injured. A black eye, a broken wrist, an injured ankle. There's no more bodybuilding. You're on the sidelines. Like, it was my moneymaker. 4 years out of high school, I was professional. And then, you get a mortgage and a car payment. And the only way that you're going to survive is by staying away from fights. I didn't run from fights. I saw fights all around me, but I was the great negotiator when it came down to people trying to challenge me. The last thing I want to do when I'm out and some guy, like you said, Bas, has been drinking and you're sober, I was the diffuser. It's pointing out the hot chick in the club or flexing my arms so they could feel it or kind of like making them feel like they're bigger and stronger than I am and kind of making myself a little smaller. I shrink in the face of somebody bumping into me or stepping on my foot or trying to challenge me. They always want to arm wrestle, but the last thing I wanted to do when I was out was be tough, just because it escalates so quick. And especially today, like I'm older now. So now, you don't know where the next guy's going to pull a gun out, right? They just pull them out because that's all they got. And there's no fighting anymore. They got a knife or a gun and it happens in the blink of an eye. Wife, kids. The last thing I want to do is wind up getting into some street fight with somebody that's crazier than and has nothing to lose.
Yep.
So, Shawn, physical fighting aside and the threat of that, who or what, if anything or anybody, intimidates you?
Well, I mean, I don't surround myself in situations where I get intimidated. I mean,
not physical violence, anything in life at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's weird in my industry, right? It's a different industry than what you guys are familiar with in bodybuilding. It's all show. I'm recognized for what I used to look like, and now I'm respected because of what I learned from how I got there. I parlayed how I learned to build my body into being a pitch man for products and hosting like Bas, hosting shows, being the color commentator and a promoter. But I really haven't been in a situation where I'm intimidated. I don't run the streets. I don't put myself in a position where I'm running into some bad people. I travel the world, but look, where I go, I'm going into places where I'm kind of celebrated. When I go into a gym, I imagine for these guys, like going into a boxing ring or an MMA arena, you come in there, based on what your sweat equity was as a celebrity. We have great admiration for each other, whether it's bodybuilding, MMA, or boxing as athletes. But when you take me out of my element and take me into a house party or take me someplace that I'm not familiar with or it's not in my comfort zone, my senses are alerted, but I'm not afraid. I don't get intimidated. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But I typically don't go into dark areas and places I'm not wanted,
Yep.
Well, Bean, anything intimidate you?
Well, I'm married and I got to sleep sometimes, Rick. No, I'm just like Bas. I mean, I try to not get into a fight. There's no money involved and it hurts the next day. I'm pretty easygoing, but every once in a while I get worried because there's a point at me that I snap. And when it gets past that snapping stage, I don't really. It's just all an instinct. I lose it. So I try not to go out a lot of public places because of that, because people do try to challenge you and whatnot. I'm really easygoing though. I try to be easygoing always. So I've smoothed things over a lot just by being easygoing. Because they don't want to bring the dark side of me out.
Paul says even the scariest guys he knows are always scared of their wives. That's
You
an
gotta
awesome.
think sometimes, Rick. Think about it.
I got you, man. I got you, my friend.
Have
Well, hey,
fun.
we're about there, guys. What are the big goals for the week? What's everybody up to? Shawn, what do you got going, man?
Yeah, well, I'm out of here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I fly to Columbus, Ohio. I believe this is the 34th year of the 33rd year of the Arnold Classic, and I've never missed one since 1989. So I'm glad to be out there, spend time with Arnold. The supplement company I work with, Mutant, is one of the official sponsors. We're going to present on stage, and my partner, Dr. Morales out of Houston, Texas, is presenting a $10,000 Best Poser Award for the first time to Classic Physique Division. So anytime you can go to the Arnold Classic, be around some of the guys you kind of came up with in the game. Ronnie Coleman's getting a Lifetime Achievement Award directly from Arnold. Some other people that have gotten that have been Triple H got it a year or so ago, Linda Murray, Sylvester Stallone, a lot of people that have made some big moves in bodybuilding and in entertainment. Arnold is recognized, including his old training partner, Franco Columbu. So it's the second largest show behind the Mr. Olympia in prestige. So I'll be out there tomorrow until Sunday, and it's a one-day event this year because of the COVID restrictions. So we're not going to have the huge expo. Typically, this is a 4-day weekend, 220,000 fans, 22,000 athletes. This year, it's only 4 different professional divisions, no strongman, no cheerleading, no expo. So it's really gotten dumbed down because of COVID restrictions. But it'll be back up full torque March 2022.
Nice. Bean, good. Best of luck with that, Shawn. That sounds like
Thank
a
you.
good weekend coming up, man. Bean, anything good happening? Any big goals for the week? What are you working on, man?
Man, I'm still working on my weight. I'm watching what I'm eating. It's still dropping 4 or 5 pounds a week. I'm headed up to Tennessee this weekend to hang out up there with some good friends, and I'm gonna have a blast this week. My weekend's gonna be simple. I'm gonna relax really a lot.
Right on. Hey, boss, I would ask you next, but I want to save you for last because you're always fun and happy-go-lucky, and mine's a little heavy and deep, I think. Eric, you remember my friend Brett Barony. My best friend I've ever had died suddenly just recently. It was unexpected, and there was a lot of reparations that needed to be made between he and I that I didn't get to do. And I'm talking with my therapist today, who I love dearly, because it's all good for all of us, I think. And we talked about just being present and being kind with our friends, and realizing, at the risk of sounding dramatic, that this moment may be the last. So as I sit here, you see my dogs wandering everywhere. With my dogs in my beautiful home in Hawaii, feeling so blessed. My goal this week is just to be really focused on relationships and be the best I can be with everybody. So that's the heavy stuff, and that's where I am this week.
No, I love it. And Shawn, I was inducted, like at the Arnold Classic, and the one thing, so if you ever get to speak to him, is because afterwards he walked over to me, Arnold, and I was sitting at the table, and my knees was so shot I couldn't stand up. So he says, "Oh, man, very nice meeting you." And then later on, I thought I should have gotten up even with the pain in my knees. That was not cool. So. But It was killing me so bad. So, but anyway, that's my story.
I'll let him know that. I'll tell him that.
Yeah, please do, because I always thought, man, that was an idiot move. So
we've all had those moments before.
We all have those moments.
I called Randy Couture Chuck Liddell. I know them both. But when I saw Randy, I go, "Hey, Chuck, what's going on?" He looked at me like he wanted to just I wanted to die.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I'm going to do something cool tomorrow. I'm going to induct Kevin Reynolds into the UFC Hall of Fame.
Nice.
So, yeah. So, for you guys that know, we fought each other for the UFC title, and we became friends afterwards. And now his wife asked me if I wanted to induct him into the UFC Hall of Fame, and I love it. I think it's an honor. It's cool. So we're going to talk about how we met and what happened. The first time I met him in an elevator, we were both together in an elevator. It was really funny, and he started telling me, "Hey, good luck tomorrow." I say, "Oh, good luck to you, man. It's awesome." And we saw each other smiling in the reflection of the doors. And then the next day we were fighting each other for the heavyweight championship. So, yeah, those moments, and how my nickname came to pass, and he had a big part in that. So it's going to be cool to tell that story to the people and to let everybody know what an amazing person he was.
Hey, real quick, I want to give Butterbean a shout out, inducting into the Hall of Fame in Alabama, the Boxing Hall of Fame.
Hey, thank you.
Congratulations, my man. That's
I
a big
saw the
deal.
picture.
That is awesome. Well,
That's
guys,
huge, man.
it's so good seeing you guys again. Have an amazing, great week, everybody. We are back next Wednesday at the same time with a special guest to be announced. Following week, we have Kurt Angle. Shawn Ray, Butterbean, Bas Rutten, man, it's my pleasure and my privilege to get to do this with you guys every week. Thank you so much.
All right.
And again, before we sign off, but to the unsung heroes behind the curtain, Rachel Sartoris, our wonderful producer, who has been working her ass off and making this come together for us. Thank you, Rachel. Huge thanks to John Paz, who's always there for us. And signing off for Talking Tough. We'll see you next week.
Godspeed.
Talking Tough, the world's toughest men and women at their most vulnerable.